U.S. Congress is giving President Donald Trump the massive military budget he wants. After spending trillions in more than a decade and a half fighting in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and Pakistan in the war against terror, Trump sees a rising threat from Russia and China. Trump's administration is shifting funds from fighting terrorist groups to threats posed by superpowers.
We haven't really yet seen a radical shift in priorities. A lot of the weapons we were trying to buy before, we're still buying. A lot of the operations that we were doing in the Middle East, we're still sustaining, despite the effort to focus more on Russia and China.
The $716 billion defense budget is the largest ever for the Pentagon, and it's more than the defense spending of the next 7 nations combined, including Russia and China. The mega billion U.S. measure includes a 2.6% raise for its troops. It may not sound like a lot, but it's the largest pay hike for them in 9 years.
We are going to have the Space Force.
With all that money, Trump still doesn't get something he has been pushing. He not only wants to make America great on Earth, he wants to do that in space.
When it comes to defending America, it is not enough to merely have an American presence in space. We must have American dominance in space.
There is no money in the Pentagon budget to develop and build a 6th branch of the U.S. Armed Forces, the Space Force. Defense analyst Michael O'Hanlon with the Brookings Institution calls space a dynamic and threatened domain that we will all hear more about.
The number one driver is protecting the assets that we already have in space that we think are increasingly vulnerable. And part of the reason they're vulnerable is because other countries have figured out we already use them to conduct military operations.
The DPRK likes to show off its military might with a huge parade. So does Russia. Trump has pushed for one since his inauguration. The Department of Defense estimates the U.S. military parade, slated for November right now, will cost about $12 million. Critics of the president, who didn't serve in Vietnam because of bone spur medical deferments, are livid about the planned grand parade.
Why would you spend that kind of money in terms of taxpayer resources? Why would you order military men and women to put on a parade for your ego?
Trump may have pushed for the massive U.S. military spending measure, but it received bipartisan support from Republicans and Democrats in the U.S. Congress. They approved the measure by overwhelming majorities. There is an off-year election coming in just a few months, and the last thing incumbent candidates want is to appear looking weak when it comes to supporting the U.S. military. Sean Callebs, CGTN in Washington.